welcome to the lounge, and we are now officially live. So I really appreciate all of you being here, and say hello to all the people who is joining to the live event. Publishing a book is always a celebration. It's like giving birth a child in some ways. There are complications, and at some point it's amazing that we can finally make it, no? And for us, we have been published since 12 years ago, and every new book is a matter of celebration as well. In this occasion, we are extremely happy to share the last issue of this beautiful series, Archifutures, which I won't go into the context, but in the process, I'm really proud, now talking in the name of dpr-barcelona, who is Ethel, Baraona, and Anne-Sophie de Vargas, who are here with me. We are very proud of being part of this project, being part of the process, because we have learned a lot. When in 2016, Matevž approached to us to talking about joining this beautiful cause, which is Future Architecture Platform, and asking about publishing a book. We were quite excited seeing the ideas that and Beyond had in their mind and in their table, and very, very fast see that more than a book, this was a good opportunity to start a system in which good edited and high quality contents could be in some way published in the way books will be shared in the future. And we're very, very fortunate of having the support and the freedom from Future Architecture to start doing this experimentation. The idea of a book evolved to a system that transformed in archifutures.org, a website that allows us to taste some of the features that now are part of the Future Architecture library. In some way, that system allows let's say, the editorial outcomes of the Future Architecture platform members and the emergent creatives being in a live space of exchange. And for us, this makes a lot of sense in a scenario in which publishing is not the same as it used to be like before. Nevertheless, this amazing opportunity has been also seeing many setbacks, let's say. But I'm really thankful of having in all this process the intellectual push of And Beyond team, now And Beyond Collective, that set up these 6 volumes. We will talk today about number 6, but you should go to see the whole collection, because in some ways it's a portrait of the critical importance of Future Architecture platform in the shaping of contemporary architectural discourse. And we are convinced that the moment of Archifutures is yet to come. In that sense, the influence is still in some way giving shape. And we are also very, very proud that those ideas that emerged in the first volumes were realities in the volumes to come. And studios that first talking about theory, then this was part of the practice. So thank you very much, Future Architecture Platform. Thank you very much, Matevž, for making us part of this beautiful adventure. I want to say thank to Sophie, Diana, and all the team of And Beyond Collective, because we have learned a lot with you, making mistakes together and also improving together. I think this is something important. And last but not least, I would like to also highlight our differences, because in some way, this was a good way of learning. And I really appreciate that, because even that, we work together of giving shape and give birth to this beauty. So welcome to all of you. We have been talking about platform systems, but I want to celebrate also the opportunity of smelling a book. So right now I will give voice to Sophie and Diana, and please tell us about this beautiful 6th volume, which is Archifutures Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, César. Hello, everyone. I would like, okay. Can you, César, can you make, I would like to share the screen.
Yes, you are the host now. You have the control.
Thank you. So, Okay, just 1 second. Okay. So, first of all, thank you for inviting us to our first visit to the Future Architecture rooms. Thank you to Matevž Celik and the Future Architecture platform team for inviting us to make the book series accompanying this incredible platform you started to build 5 years ago. Thank you also to Ethel, César, and Anne-Sophie from dpr-barcelona for growing that first spark of an idea away further into such an amazing digital and print library that has really set pioneering standards in publishing. Thank you to each and every contributor to every one of the 6 volumes of the Archifutures book series for helping us and the world understand the potential of architecture in new ways. And last but not least, thank you to our colleagues at And Beyond Collective for the wonderful collaborative environment of trust, skill, and support in all our projects together.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sophie Lovell, one of the editors of the Future Architecture platform's Archifutures books, and Diana is our amazing graphic designer who's designed all these books. Since 2015, we've made 6 volumes together with DPR of the Archifutures series. Volume 1, the museum, Volume 2, the studio, Volume 3, the site, Volume 4, Thresholds, then the rather prophetic Volume 5, Apocalypse, and now we bring you Archifutures Volume 6, Agency, which is a more hopeful and optimistic field guide to reclaiming the future of architecture. All 6 volumes were designed by Diana in Porto and contain special illustrations by our own Jana Sinilu in Berlin, and were edited by various constellations of myself and Fiona Shipwright, also in Berlin, George Kafka in Athens, and Rob Wilson in London. For each book in the series since its inception, And Beyond has sampled the prevailing mood in the room at the FA annual conferences and tempered it with our own experiences to make a volume reflecting the zeitgeist of that moment, expressed through selected projects as well as contributions by invited external experts. As the series has developed, each new volume has also reflected a feeling of growing urgency relating to the need for a deep, universal systemic change. And little did we all realize during the FA conference in February in 2020, that we were already hurtling towards a global pandemic that was to massively shift the human paradigm and accelerate calls for change. As we began to commission material for the book during the lockdown in March, some contributors adapted their material slightly to reflect the new circumstances, but most projects, I'm glad to say, already reflected their authors' assumptions that the need for essential change was a clear given. Disaster is upon us, and Volume 6 is a call to agency as well as a call to action. To build agency, we first need reflection, followed by new narratives that can then progress to action. So in the first chapter of this book, Reflection, I discussed the first 5 years of the Future Architecture platform with its founder Matevž, and talked about and how this extraordinary collective entity has gathered momentum and sharpened its mission towards one of greater critical production, and become an agent of change. The second chapter is about rectifying imbalance by turning the tables of power. And Marina Otero's essay here highlights a shift in architectural practice away from commodities and a nostalgia for a position at the table towards commons-oriented strategies, politicization, and redistribution of power. It's joined by Miguel Braceli's Biblioteca Abierta in Venezuela, a really great project, Miguel, and the Office of Human Resources Agro-Commune, which challenges colonial hegemony of production. Straight lines, as impositions of order and separation, are a legacy from the past that still very much define our present. Chapter 3, Lines, shows that our thinking and responses need to be much less linear and much more inclusive. In her powerful essay called Out of Line, Marie-Louise Richards from the Royal Institute of Arts in Stockholm traces threads of narratives that have been omitted or erased through discriminatory structures. This is followed by projects from 45 Degrees North and the Institute of Linear Research that both use geography to explore and engage with communities and landscapes. Our fourth chapter covers a topic that has interested the Anne Beyond Collective for some time, ruin. Ruin is a term that has fascinated architects for centuries, but now we begin to see it in a different context to the usual romantic nostalgia for the past. Here, Will Jennings takes us on a journey through the tropes of the city in ruins and speculative renderings to ask, what will the ruins of neoliberalism look like? And Jason Rees-Parry's essay, An Anticipatory Theory of Ruin Ecology, states that ruins will become the architecture of default rather than the exception, and that architects should therefore anticipate this by designing them to be biodiversity hotspots for the future. So for the fifth chapter, storytelling, we engineered an exchange between emerging practitioners, Matevž, and new platform members, Architektüros fondas, who Justinas and Andrius are here, hello, which then became a fantastic conversation about story making for accessibility and empowerment. Also in this chapter, Unwar Space Lab shared their love letter to the Neretva River as the subject of their research about ecologies of violent spatial transformation. And the melancholic illustrations of Konstantinos Markou, which form part of his narrative, the Great Island of Replicas, hint at storytelling about the divided island of Cyprus. Finally, agency as the capacity to act and exert power or influence comes through engagement. Therefore, the sixth and final chapter of this volume, Engage, is about how to achieve that. It's also about creating change through direct action. Here, Sam Turner from Architects Climate Action Network shares their strategies for engagement. We also have an interview in this chapter with Thomas Aquilina, co-director of the London-based New Architecture Writers, about race and space and how the NAW are developing the critical journalistic skills and editorial connections of Black and minority ethnic emerging writers in order to generate tools for alternative forms of architecture making. With their smart covenant, Jack Mancella and his team from Dark Matter Labs share an innovative new legal contract for sharing land value. And here too, finally, another pairing we made between critical practice and unfolding pavilion. We asked them to get together and come up with a form of mixed media manifesto for better practice. In response, they curated a guerrilla collaboration, and to our delight, invited 6 further practices to create double-page spreads of takeaway manifestos. These were Arturo Franco and Ana Roman, Recetas Urbanas, Coloco, Point Supreme, Atelier Mob, and BC Architects and Studies. Finally, it's sometimes hard to have hope in the face of the enormous problems that the world is facing right now. But the projects and practices featured in this and the 5 previous volumes of Archifutures do indicate that we already have the ideas and skills to make the necessary changes, It's just that the means for achieving them are unevenly distributed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie and Diana, for this beautiful and brief sort of path to the pages of Archifutures 6. I'm really amazed. Every new volume, I always tell you, Sophie, this is our best volume to the day. It happened with number 4, number 5, but this one, again, I have to say it, and I think you will reinforce the idea. I'm really happy how let's say the contents pushed to another level, and at some point also were useful to make a critical review of all the things done so far. So I'm really happy as well to give voices as in every volume to platform members, especially the newcomers, let's say, and in some way that's what makes this series something like a kind of register of how, let's say, the views of the platform are also increasing. And this is the case with Architektüros fondas. Today, Andrius and Justinas join us. But we also have in this presentation, let's say, like unexpected inviters, because I know that it's impossible that the whole community of Future Architecture platform can join. So we asked some of the alumni, fellows, to jump and in some way interrupt us and also say their voice and react to the contents. We were talking with this, with Miguel just before starting, that it's sometimes difficult to have like a live feedback, and that's the intention. So we will ask the first of these unexpected attendees to jump and share with us the thoughts. I will reclaim your hosting. So I can be the host now, okay?
Hello. So, okay, we are very, very happy to be here on this occasion. Of course, I don't know if it makes sense to give so much more thanks and applause and all of the good words to this publication, which you definitely deserve. So I don't know how much of repetition can we make here, but it was a very, very nice experience to be part of this publication. And we also were especially happy to have Maris TV, Paula and Arian to have this conversation. It was very nice also, not in content-wise, not in the fruitfulness of the whole conversation, but also I think in this personal experience. I really love that in that way. And yeah, I'm also most, I think, yeah, this is what I am mostly thankful for Archifutures, this way of connecting in more close, in more in-depth conversation to other people. So yeah, about the whole contents, I don't think I can, it's obvious that it is really interesting. I have not honestly had opportunity to take the publication in my hands yet, although I know it is already in Architektüros funded. We have, I think, quite a few copies already. Yeah, so maybe Andrius wants to continue with this.
Yeah, it seems Justinas is much more prepared, and he told so many nice things, which I can just agree with. What I think is interesting that there's this new publication, and while we are in this publication and in this book, and we had a conversation. This conversation was during the time when we were making another publication. So in a way, I think maybe a month or two, we will release the publication which we were working on when we were doing a conversation for this publication. So I mean, it's confusing, it's a little bit inception, but I like how one thing follows another thing, and one thing gives ideas to another thing, and how it continues everything. I mean, it's great that there's this continuity. It's volume 6 already, and the ideas, especially about building narratives, because we are working on this topic. So you can read, of course, the conversation and find out more, but we are very interested in how talking about architecture can influence both architecture and both our approach to architecture. And in the same way, if we change our view towards architecture, maybe we also change the architecture itself. So we were working on this publication, and so it's great that there's already volume 6, which expands, I would say, maybe experimental talk about, and maybe sometimes informal talk towards built environment. And I hope that in the future, maybe we can also contribute from our side, from Architektüros fondas side, maybe with some ideas which can, maybe we can in the future look not only at Archifutures as a standalone, but maybe it will grow and grow and grow, because we had a conversation, of course, with me as TV. So there's a TV and video format, which we talked about in the book. And so it seems that, Archifutures can be this basis or bone, and then we can see a lot of things around it. And then maybe in those things, maybe in our publication, we will have a reflection about it. So I see that, what a future architecture platform is doing, it's really creating a network, and it's really working, and it's growing, and it's great to see how things are getting connected and how more and more ideas are coming along.
Thank you very much, and I think it's amazing having this input, and undoubtedly one of the key traits of future architecture is how new voices come and new ways of practicing. This is something amazing from your conversation in the book, in which, let's say, arguably was me as TV who was interviewing you, but at some point it turned out that you were interviewing them. It was so wonderful how the interviewer was also curious about knowing the work of the interviewer. And I think that's the spirit of future architecture, these unexpected results. And thank you very much. We will move forward, and we will have time to have some feedback in the conversation. Right now, here is one of the uninvited that I was telling you.
Could we design systems that, instead of striving for generalization and homogeneity, would be able to accommodate contingency, diversity, and difference? Asked Marina Otero. This is what Enrico Porfido comments.
When we accepted the challenge of addressing this statement by Marina Otero, the first direct and easy answer was, not only we could, but we have to. Before falling into the top-of-mind answer, further reflection are needed. First of all, most of us grew up with the idea that being an architect is strictly related to drawing. If you do not draw, you're not an architect. And if in a table there's no drawing involved, there won't be a chair for us to sit. We like to say that architects should be conceived as orchestra director who can coordinate and integrate other professional expertise and skills. But this is something that also a project manager can do. Why should we be doing it instead? Because our superpower is to know when to draw a line, but also, and especially, when not to do it. Drawing, indeed, is a tool to read and unveil complex systems, and this capacity, this sensibility of understanding complexity, is what makes us different. What makes a system complex and unique is often what is not visible at first sight, And our responsibility is to act on these systems by making each and every diverse element visible and give it the right space to evolve. It isn't our role to physically shape it, but to lead transformation processes that should be respectful to each component of the system. Only when we finally embrace this, we will be able to image the system and sending out invitation to our table.
Architecture in the past undoubtedly solved many problems.
So here is one of the first unexpected attendees that are jumping, and just like in some way books jump in the projects of our next contributor, Miguel Braceli, an artist that with his project Biblioteca Abierta amazed all of us on how spaces can be done with books, and how a library can be also set up in the most unexpected environments. Miguel has an artistic practice that also, let's say, use public space in a unconventional and surprising way. Of course, his project Biblioteca Abierta is the one that triggers attention, but we are also interested in the activist profile that you give to your interventions. So welcome, Miguel. Thank you very much for accepting, first contributing to this book and also to join the celebration. We are just curious to know how this activist part is triggering your practice, and especially how you take action.
Yes, thank you so much for this invitation, for being here today, and also for the book. It's very special, like, for me to see this project made of books also inside a book. So I think that's a very interesting, also a surprising result for me. Yes, certainly, especially Biblioteca Abierta in particular, it was a project that began as an activism. Because in the context that this project born, it was a context of a national strike of public universities in Venezuela, and we brought these books to public space as a statement of the value of the academy to society, of our role, trying to engage society in a different way with our struggle, rather than more like tough solutions like stop a highway or do something useful as a banner. So we were trying to think a smart solution about how to reframe a protest. So we decided to just work with books. So after that, it became a project that it has its own purpose and sense, even without the context where it originated. So we started to work with other places and communities, bring these books to public space. To explain the project, we throw these books in public space, and they spend there for a day until people grab it, most of all of them. They are to take them for freely. It's a contribution, it's a gift. Part of the book is the process of collecting them. It's a very important, invisible also part of the project to make this happen. I think it's connected also with the context in so many ways. It's born in Venezuela, also in our own political and social crisis. So many people is leaving the country. So also we receive this donation, we recycle them. So like for me, it's a way to think another strategies, not also to relate with art, also with architecture. I think architecture today also, its approach is boundaries with this practice and social practice and community-based projects that are very close to our own projects in art. I don't see like the difference between those disciplines today working in public space in the same way. And agency is definitely the way also that join us in the same goals. And probably it's even like the artists who are trying to work as an architect in public space, finding another way of build, not only build this library, for example, without matter and without walls, also like building community, as we're doing right now with future architecture. I want also to use a few lines to acknowledgement that and to being thankful about this opportunity of being part also, not only of in the book, also in future architecture, because I went here with no idea. And I end up working with so many programs like Maxi Museum in the Summer School of Architecture, with the Tirana Week of Architecture in Polish University, like some pending projects with Oslo Triennale. So like you are really creating community. So it's not a myth. So it's also a good time to say that the applications are open. So please also be part of the community of future architecture, because I'm sure like the next year you will be here like one of us, like enlarging our community and growing, and also bringing up like many other ideas. I'm very thankful also for Matthew's perspective, like to try to open it and make it as wider as possible, involving so many different practices. I'm coming from architecture, that's my original background. Then I started to develop this practice and also to fit it in the art world. But it's been extremely welcoming and rewarding to go back to architecture, to this is a specific community, and have another way, and also like to understand and learning from each other and from other colleagues and the people that right now are part of the book, like to the state of the art also in this field and in architecture.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And I think you have pointed something quite interesting, which is the vision and the power of a platform. Now I want to introduce you all who are watching live to Matevž Čelik, the mastermind, the instigator of this beautiful chaos, as our friend James Taylor Foster named future architecture. Matevž will have a word after, but right now I want to ask to Matevž and to all you who are here in the conversation, what is your opinion? What is a platform for? Please, Matevž.
I keep saying that at future architecture meeting that the platform should be a very well functioning machine to which anyone can plug into and find a good fellow, partner, friend with another interesting idea or project, and who can match his project, and they can start collaborate. So for me, the platform is just a framework. It's something that it's something that facilitates others that can do good projects.
What a beautiful definition of order chaos. Okay, so I'm curious for you, Sophie, as an editor and experienced, researcher, what is your opinion about a platform nowadays in current times?
It's a really interesting question. I think it makes me think of like the first time, I think the first couple of times that I came to these kind of, creative conferences, and all these people for like 2 or 3 days having the most fantastic conversations and telling each other what fantastic conversations they were having. They were so excited by it. And then every now and then someone would say, yeah, but what is this? What is this? What is this platform? And then just go off and have massive conversations with somebody else. So I think a platform's about exchange, and it's about, for me, it's about communication, and that's 100% what my job is. If I can't get things worth saying across, if I can't share ideas that I think are worth talking about effectively, then I'm completely failing in my job. And I think there's so many amazing ideas that come, that the platform is the place where this information gets shared and where there's this incredible feedback and exchange. And it's not just people standing on a stage or in a Zoom call expounding, but it's really like, you should hear it. You should hear it in the mall, standing there, or in the courtyard with all this buzzing going on. It was very, very exciting.
Beautiful. This value of the platform as a space of encounter is some of the things that year after year make us going with enthusiasm to Ljubljana. These February meetings was something like, because it was intense. I always remember coming back with the head like this and exhausted, but excited about what was going on there. Now I'm going to pass the ball to Justinas and Andrius as Architektüros fondas. What attracted you to the platform? What was this magnet that made you getting to this? And what's your opinion of a platform in current times?
It's a very hard question because it was not two of us who got hooked to it first. We were not at the very, very beginning of our future architecture platform collaboration, but now I think I am hooked, really. And because this was a very special year in our little branch of Architektüros fondas, because we are like an octopus. We have many projects, many people. We sometimes know each other quite little even. We know faces, say hello in the street, but still we don't know exactly how the projects go on. Maybe we take part on or visit one or two, but it's actually a network as well. So yes, but this year was very special. I think we could speak from our personal encounters, but we had quite a few participants from coming from Future Architecture Platform, and I personally took care about one event which we devised together with Will Jennings, who also is a co-author of your publication, and we wanted to have a floating conversation about different perspectives towards the city, and we staged it as on a raft, freely floating down the river Neris from outskirts to the very center of Vilnius, which would rotate, and it would be a 360 video live translation, broadcasting, and and we invited a few interesting people to speak about their own perspectives or how they perceive the field of discourses, let's say, about the city. It of course had the same problem as we all do. Will could not come due quarantine, but he took a very interesting role of key listener instead of key speaker, and he walked along the River Thames in London as only listening our voices and knowing the stage, knowing what we are doing in general, but actually focusing his eyes on actual context of London and trying to get parallels with his special poetic abilities, which he definitely has. So it turned out a very interesting project, and just recently we got an output from Will, which was a text, illustrated text, which we will be, of course, including in our upcoming publication. And as you mentioned, this giving birth. So actually, yes, Archifutures is expanding and seeding its seeds around. So this is also Andrius has also experience, but I don't know if we have time. It would be nice to hear as well.
No, I mean, I think you already a little bit spoiled, maybe, but not spoiling. But overall, I think why we joined the platform is that it's really a network of big institutions, and then Architektüros fondas is really quite big organization in Lithuania. However, we are very small in Europe. I mean, we are not known at all in Europe. So it's a really great opportunity to connect to like-minded people and organizations. And like Justinas described, we can make the events. We can share. You know, we can join your event, and we can invite somebody else to our event, and it's a great exchange. So I think that's the main purpose, of course, of Future Architecture Platform. And the book itself is also a great tool to capture the moment which we all live in.
Amazing, amazing. I think it summarizes very well with some nuances. Why are we here? Those connections are fundamental for the work we as cultural agents do. something quite interesting is how you as new platform members, also Miguel as a fellow of this year, see that the work can also be boosted in some way or pushed by the interaction with the platform. Now another invite will jump, and is one of the very first fellows, is alumni of Future Architecture Platform. So please, let's listen to Léopold Lambert.
Architecture in the past undoubtedly solved many problems. But whose problems? At whose expense? And at what cost in terms of generating new problems? Is asking Matevž Čelik. Léopold Lambert says,
I completely agree with that framing of both architecture and problems as well as solutions. Architects often think of their work as solving something, and to a certain degree they are correct. I think, destroying an entire neighborhood and replacing its population from a racialized working class to a white middle class solves some problems, but exactly as Matevž says, whose problems? And so I think we should be trying to address, to create our own problems and to define indeed whose problems are we interested in, not so much solving, but at least addressing.
Now another voice jumps inside.
Matevž Čelik said that global injustice, the climate, energy, and economic crisis cannot be fought alone. We can only fight them together. Architects must recognize and take their share of the task in this struggle. We listen to Tania Tovar's comment.
Architecture is, by its very nature, both spatial and temporal. It exists in its buildings, but also in its design, urban plans, utopian schemes, or paper drawing and book pages. This peculiar myriad of architectures raises fundamental questions about how architecture enacts, how it performs, and consequently how it might lead to other possible futures. This possibility underlies all questions regarding architecture's ability to be critical, where and when it should be. Agency can be understood as the very vehicle of such drive or intention to create alternative worlds. Concerns with criticality, however, have hardly been limited to architecture alone. As disciplines outside of architecture have shown, the world has radically challenged some of the foundations of architectural production. New conditions provoke us to question architecture's critical potential, but also its agency in the world. Consequently, rather than casting architecture in terms of either societal relevance or aesthetic quality, current approaches tend to be guided less by what architecture means or intends and focus more on how it works and what it does.
Thank you, Tania, for these
Marina
words.
Otero
I will
highlights
say
that
these voices that jumped and what wanted also to be part of this celebration, and you have seen how they respond some of the questions posed both by Marina Otero and Matevž Celik in Archifutures 6. And now I want to take the opportunity of having Matevž, the initiator of this beautiful adventure, and want to invite him to share with us some reflections, which I'm sure will be like a critical view of what has been, the path that lead to the creation of Future Architecture Platform. So thank you, Matevž, for joining us today, and we would like to hear these personal thoughts about what was going on here and what will happen with this great adventure.
Thank you for organizing this conversation. And, thanks everyone for being here. I think we have not just another beautiful book, but the whole series of Archifutures, which are a very precise document of the 6 years of the operation of the Future Architecture Platform. with participants, with members. They are a document of this time. A lot of things happened in this time. And as Sophie was asking me at the beginning of my interview for Archifutures, if I still believe that working for better quality of our living environments is still important for future architecture. I think it is, even though in these 5 years we have a feeling that the world has become less harmonious space. Everything bad seemed to happen in these 5 years from that accompanied our programs and events and discussions from Brexit, Donald Trump stepping on power in the United States, and all the right-wing populists around the world getting extra power, to wars and the crisis of migration in the Middle East and in Syria. And I think that it was clear from what the discussions at Future Architecture were about, that these are relevant questions for architecture as well. At least this kind of critical view of the future is something that is necessary. It's necessary for our practice to understand planetary context. It's just a minimum today if we want to contribute at least to shaping environments. And it's really never been so urgent to understand the backgrounds and implications of every project any architect embarks on. On the other hand, I think we started to communicate in a very different manner in this time through social media. We became more interconnected. I could quote the German singer Mark Foster, queer, here saying in his song, "Wir sind, die Welt ist klein und wir sind groß." Und sagt auch, wir können das Buch selber schreiben, es gibt genug freie Seiten. And that's what we've been doing in these 5 years, I think. For me, when we started the platform and 5 years, the discussions about architecture were much different. It was important for me to try to turn these conversations to a different direction. I thought about what should be the focus of a platform aimed at the emerging generation of professionals. At that time, I read books like Future Practice by Rory Hyde, or The Other Architect by Giovanna Borassi, and these were all very inspiring publications. But at the same time, this was still the time when the discourse of architecture, at least to me, seemed extremely unproductive. It was about evaluating buildings, presenting them, discussing about them, what was good, what was not good. It was discussing about the projects that were complete, that were done, and evaluating if these were achievements or some failures. There was anger over star architects who were criticized to be responsible for the global crisis and the polarization between proponents and critics of individual notorious projects. And for me, it seemed extremely important to try to make this discussion more productive, to think about how our practice is developing. How should architects respond to climate crisis? Or how should they respond to inequalities in the world? Maybe it seems pretentious, but I think it's at least important to try to think about that and to try to discuss about that. So that's where I wanted to turn this discussion on architecture to. From the past and the projects already completed to the future. And I think it was extremely is inviting emerging professionals to collaborate. They should talk about that. They should talk about the future, about how they envision their project, their profession in the future. Maybe at the beginning, I wished that architecture would become also more futurologic through the platform than it was at that time. But at the same time, I hope that it would not be too speculative, but grounded with an understanding of the past and the present context. And I think it is like that. At the previous creative exchange, Giovanna Borassi beautifully described how the future is not so distant from the present as it used to be, how actually we are obsessed with the present, how we are bumped with the new all the time. And that's how, in a way, the future seems closer and not so different than the present, but at the same time, thinking about the future is more realistic, and it's not as speculative as it used to be.
Thank you very much. Sorry, please go.
Okay.
I thought that you had.
I wanted to say also that let me repeat the world is small and we are big for a sober and down-to-earth debate about the future of architecture. If we talk about Ljubljana as a specific location in architectural terms, then we are talking about Central Europe, the space that is culturally developing between different nations, between the Sea of Adriatic and between Vienna, where different architects operated, including Jože Pličnik, who is the most prominent personality here in Slovenia. But Slovenia is a place that is paradoxically interspersed with cultures, and at the same time it is very introverted. And our architectural culture is on the one hand strongly characterized by crossbreeding of various influences, and on the other by pragmatism. And I think both of these things are extremely important for the future of architecture, to be opened to allow this crossbreeding, and to be pragmatic at the same time, and also to somehow
I think we get
this big world to understand on the globe. And I'm really happy that in the Platability to Lisbon, from Scandinavia to the Adriatic.
Thank you, Matevž. Unfortunately, the last phrase you said, at least for me, was difficult to hear, was kind of freezing. I'm sure you were highlighting the position, the strategical position of Ljubljana in that aspect, not? I think that moving the center of the central discussion from the, let's say, so traditional places, more Central Europe or United States, is one of these key traits of future architecture, isn't it?
That's what I wanted to say, that on the one hand, Ljubljana is in Central Europe, being influenced by from different sides, from the German world, from Italy, from south of Europe. So there's crossbreeding of these different influences. But on the other hand, it's marginal as a small place, and there are several places on the margins of the big world of today that I see are becoming more and more influential and important. And I'm really happy to see organizations from Tbilisi to Lisbon, from Timisoara, from the Mediterranean to Scandinavia, organizing really interesting events and participating in this discussion that the platform enables.
Thank you very, very much. I think we have reached the time when we can take out our drinks. I was wishing that this moment come.
I didn't get that part of the memo, but you have a drink. I will get it after.
Thank you. The other is for so I just take this opportunity to start making a toast, because this is a celebration. Of course, we were talking about deep things, critical positions in the world, and action, which is something important nowadays. But we also pair this with a claim for joy. If the revolution is not a joyful revolution, then it shouldn't be ours. So I just want to say thanks to all of you who attend. We will keep streaming a bit with some contents. I will take the opportunity to share with you that currently Archifutures number 6 is already in the Future Architecture Library. You can go over there, and from now in the Future Architecture Library, you will see that the cultural production of the platform members and emergent creatives are there, but the book agency is already there. The contents will be successively uploaded here, so you will be able to read it online. Nowadays, you can get the digital format or get the printed book. Over there, you can also explore the whole series of Archifutures, and you will see that these contents that Sophie was sharing with us are over there, and it's amazing to see all this critical background stored here. So thank you very much to all of you. I make a toast and cheers for this beautiful book that we have together. And I'm sure you will be drink, and I will leave now the screen with a last of the thoughts. We received some more feedbacks, but this one still we're on time to jump in. Our dear friend Merve Bedir, who is also an alumni of Future Architecture platform, reacted to some of the contents. Please start drinking. We will go back to streaming, and you will also hear some music that has been in some way recurrent in our meetings.
Marina Otero highlights that, in the actual context, current generations have the duty to design alternative futures and form of existence that are not based on extractive technologies and economies. Let's hear what Merve Bedir's comment about it.
If we take the meanings of the words technologies and economies in the wider way, not in the immediate sense, but in the wider sense, as the way we do things, our techniques, our methods, our institutions, our bureaucracies, and as well as the way we organize our livelihoods, it is indeed the extractive technologies and economies that hold the basis of the issue. So not to blame, let's say, the immediate meaning of technology as such, but the way we do things in a larger scale is the question. I'd like to think of how we will design alternative futures instead of what those alternative futures will look like. So instead of trying to design the future itself or imagining the future itself, I'd like to think of how we are going to do it. How are we going to imagine? Existence becomes rather occurrence when we focus on designing the process rather than designing the future. So then my question is about how we are going to design the characteristics of the space where the future will be designed. How and what will be represented in that space, what kind of relationships be in among things and people and agencies be in that space.
Okay, so here we are. We can officially say Archifutures 6 is out. Thank you everybody for joining us here, and I want to say cheers for this beautiful adventure. Congratulations.
Congratulations to everybody.
Cheers.
Yes, congratulations. Number 7.
Thank you for this great experience. I think César has some music there to share.
Someone was asking about this. It's a gift from our team for 10 years in director's chair.
I thought it was you at the beginning. I thought, oh, there's Matevž there again. Like another inception.
Okay, so you will recognize this music because in some way music has been also part of our path in future architecture. We will keep connected. I will share my screen with the music. If YouTube allow, let's say, the adverts to play the music. And in some ways also part of all the things that we shared in these years. So thank you very much. Please go to Future Architecture Library, get the book, and you're still on time if you have one good present for Christmas. So thank you very much everybody for attending, and stay tuned for Future Architecture platform. Bye-bye.